Hi, this is the Loudest Crow. I'm Jonathan Louderback.
I'm the special guest Teryn Norcross.
I'm Justin Kroh, and we are here to caw through the noise, this time in a Discord call.
Third
Yeah.
time's the charm. Technical issues.
Oh my god, yeah. Third time is the charm, for real, for real.
Yeah, we'll get there
Um,
though.
you went.
We get there. We survive and endure, as The Last of Us would say.
Yeah.
I'm getting a
Uh,
haircut today. What do you guys think about that?
uh, it's kind of hard to tell over the Discord call, my guy.
I'm getting a haircut today. I'm not. I'm like.
Oh, I thought you said you got
Yeah.
one. Okay, maybe.
No, I haven't gotten. I did not get a haircut at 8 a.m.
That'd be something.
Yeah.
I want to get it all shaved off. I want to go bald. Although I will
Oh,
say, and I do kind of want to talk about. I have that urge sometimes, like just to go shave everything off and then become a monk.
ugh,
You
I
know?
could never.
I don't
Not
know,
Sometimes I
be.
man.
think
I
about
just, I
that
just,
just as a joke.
I,
But
it's not even as a joke. Just like, not even like, it's not a joke. It's not like serious. It's just like somewhere in between. You
Just
know?
some. It's just something you think about sometimes, right?
Yeah. It's like you know how like because I know girls like Randy in particular has this all the time. Where it's like she just wants to cut her own hair. It's like, kind of like that, right? It's like sometimes I'll be sitting there. I'm like, I could shave off all my hair and no one would stop me. Like they would protest because
I would.
I would be an egg, but like they wouldn't stop me. I have
all
the
the people
power
I
to do
know,
that.
all the people I
Oh
know, I
yeah,
want to
what
see
an
Wes completely bald.
incredible power.
Okay, West Bald is cursed. I don't want to think about that.
Oh God, why did you have to make me think about that? Especially since, because he has like some, correct me if I'm wrong, but he has some pretty significant facial hair now, right?
He has a, like, I really like the way, yeah, he has facial hair. He's like a big beard, like big,
Yeah.
bushy beard. And he also has, like,
Honestly, he looks like a younger Dr. Bob with like, I'm imagining him bald. He'd look like a younger Dr. Bob if he was bald.
he would look like a younger Dr. Bob if he was bald. Yeah, that's
Younger
kind of
Dr.
wild.
Bob is bald. We're already dropping so many names.
Yeah, but like, we're not dropping, like, I don't even know, man. As long as we're not like, their last name is this is their social security number, they live
Yeah.
here, I think we'll be fine.
Oh, that's probably
My
where we
name is
fucked
Walter
up with
Hardwell
Seth
White.
last time because he kept calling him by his full name.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, speaking of last time, for all like 3 viewers we have, we tried to record this yesterday, but Justin's audio did not pick up.
Yeah,
So
I
Which is
um, I
exciting.
forgot that my microphone can't be used by two applications at once. So Discord was picking it up, but OBS was not. So so now my
yeah.
microphone
Exciting.
audio is just going to my computer straight up, and now it's picking up. It has to. It's good.
Check just to make sure, bro.
I'm looking at it right now. And little volume things
Yeah.
going boop 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 while I'm
Yeah.
talking.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
like,
we're
that's what it's,
definitely good then.
I think this is funny from like, and it's like I think I'm the one that lives in this position. I can very easily hear footsteps upstairs, and I'm listening for my nephew because my sister's away going to community service, and I can distinctly tell that like I could tell the difference in people's footsteps. So I just heard footsteps and I had
Oh
to pause and I
shit,
had to watch.
like a ninja.
A little bit, it feels pretty cool, but it's
Also,
like
can
only
we,
for my
we
family.
take that back a step to your sister's doing community service?
Oh,
Like,
hey man, life happens. We all do shit. I think that she's doing community service from like something she did like a long ass time ago, like
okay.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I won't get into
Wait, is
that.
this your older sister or your younger sister?
Younger sister? No, it's my older sister.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah,
what?
Kayla's doing some community service. She did some shit, man.
No, but I think the funnier part of that is if it were your younger sister, you said it would be from years ago. Kaylee's like, I don't even know how old she is, but I'm
Yeah, she's
imagining
in
like
middle
from when
school,
she's
so
like 6.
third grade, fucking.
Yeah.
I mean, I, I'm trying to think. Because I'm pretty sure if you did something at that age, you just get stuck straight in juvie. Like they're not gonna like play around. And I'm putting you in community service, right?
Damn. That's kind of brutal.
What do you guys think about like child murderers? Not like murderers who kill children, but like children who
I
kill
know, I
people.
figured what you meant. Well, because see, I have a personal philosophy when it comes to like punishment in prison time, which is like not the standard. But my whole thing, I think I've explained this to you before, is like death is the great equalizer, right? when we're dead, people can spend the rest of eternity arguing whether we've lived a moral life or not. So while we're still here, we might as well try and do everything we can to help others. Now, in regards to criminals, I think, like, obviously you can't just let them roam free, but, like, community service, right, is my kind of, like, just put them to work helping other people, I feel like that's a lot more valuable than just, like, the constitutional slave labor that is the prison system.
Yeah, it's
Well,
oh, go ahead.
well, for like minor crimes, like say like drug possession, I think that's totally fine. But for more severe things where they pose a more of a threat to society than like a potential benefit, it's like, especially with murder. Murder is a big one. There's even something in the Bible that talks about like how to handle people who murdered others, and it says, look, these murderers, they have tortured consciences. The most ethical thing to do is to put them out of their own misery. And so like this obviously is starting to go toward like the death sentence debate. Um, I am. It's weird because in some respects I'm pro-life, and but in the prison system respect I am pro-death because I do think that's the most ethical thing to do for murderers.
Big disagree, son. And see, I think like this is where I might end up losing a couple people because for me, like I said with the community service, I still think that should apply to everyone. It's just the more dangerous people obviously need to be regulated more, like have people watching them and everything. Because the thing is, like, prison in the real world isn't like a fucking superhero property, right? It's really fucking hard to break out of prison.
Yeah, it is very, very fucking hard to break out of prison. It doesn't happen. Like it happens, but only like in the smallest of percentage points, right? I will say I understand the argument that's being made where it's like I understand the emotions behind the argument being made where it's like, oh, these murderers are getting 3 square meals a day, and yada yada yada, this shit. But to me, it's like I feel like a lot of those arguments are coming from people who've never been to prison, who've never had their freedom like taken from them. Because that's what
Yeah.
prison fundamentally is. It's like you live in a free society, you fuck up with your freedom, and then you can't be free for years. Because it's like I think people, now not all Christians, but I think a number of Christians, a number of theists, who especially who believe in an afterlife, who believe in the death sentence, believe that okay, the best punishment for people who commit those sort of crimes, they'll get that punishment, they'll get that just recompense in the afterlife, right? And that's you see that in the myriad religions. But like, if you can't make a policy based off that, right? You can't make policy based off that, both because of the Constitution and both because like you can't guarantee that. So you got to punish them while they're here, right? You don't punish them. Don't let them get out of it. It's kind of like my point of view. It's like I don't think we should make
Yeah.
policy based on the idea that religion doesn't work, but we also shouldn't make it that it does work. So it's just like just on the off chance that it doesn't, it's like make sure they actually get their fucking consequences.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
and outside of my personal take, I do want to comment on the actual like on the minor crime stuff that we talked about, like drug possession and that sort of stuff. That's like the larger. Did you know like America has like the largest prison population, like period?
I
It's
can believe that.
ridiculous. Yeah, I saw this whole website about it where like it shows like a little icon for each person in the U.S. prison system, and it's like it's crazy. It's crazy, dude.
Honestly, now that I think about it for a second, I'm not surprised but that America is the largest, but I'm kind of like I would have expected Japan to be up there considering they have like a 99% conviction rate.
I think that they really practice a lot more of the well, it's also prisoners per capita. So I'm gonna pull up the stat. Uh, let's see here. Mass incarceration. Uh,
I do think incarceration in the U.S. is honestly, in my mind, it might be like one of the biggest problems we have, if not the biggest. I think that the way we handle our prison system is pretty awful. Um, we just have so many
Yeah.
people. Like with you, Terry, I do agree that like for these more minor crimes, it's so much more valuable to everyone if they are given things like community service instead of just shoving them into a box with lots of other people,
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially when
and
you
then making everyone pay for them to stay there.
Yeah. Well, I
well,
especially think it can be really fucked up in regards to the minor crimes thing with like some of the ridiculous sentences. Like, remember back when Or it might still be this way. I don't know. But remember back when drug charges could get you like 15 years in prison?
It still is that way. It's just like we're starting to see weed in particular be legalized. What fucking
Yeah.
sucks is that weed's being legalized, and I know you can't go back and hello there, Ryan. This is what I was talking about. Uh, you can't go back and uh, like get those people like exonerated for their crimes because they broke them in. But what's up, dude?
Yeah. Well,
He's a mess. Here, I'm gonna go grab my cup of coffee, and I'll be right back.
okay. Well, I'm
Okay.
gonna continue off of John's point with you, Justin. But I'm just gonna point out, like, in regards to minor crimes and how ridiculous a 15-year sentence is. It's like, imagine you go into prison for drugs at the beginning of the 90s, and then you come out. It's like the world is just totally different because of the internet. Good fucking luck trying to catch up, right?
Yeah, and then like, we talk. Sorry, the media talks about this all the time. Well, I shouldn't say the media even. Just like people talk about this all the time. When you get out of prison, it's like oftentimes you just go right back because that's just the life that you became comfortable with, and it's just too
Yeah.
hard to try and adapt. Especially nowadays when things just change so fast. Like back in the 1700s, there wasn't a huge difference between say 1700 and 1750. But now
Yeah.
the difference between like you said 1990 and 2010 is so huge.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, yeah, no, winding up in the prison system for anything above like 5 years can just make you come out into a totally different world.
Exactly.
And,
It's a
and
part of
oh, go
it's
ahead.
the
Yeah,
thing of yeah, no, it's the thing of I think the big part of this whole thing is that prisons don't really commit to the rehabilitation part of that's supposed to be a part of the system, right?
indeed, and it's rough because on one hand, you do want punishment to be involved. That's like a huge column, a pillar of the prison system. But also rehabilitation should be another one, um, especially
Yeah.
for more minor crimes. And that's why it's like, if rehabilitation is part of it, then do we even need like the physical prison building for those more minor crimes? Like you said, community service would be so much more fitting for stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you did something bad, we're going to give you something to do that will benefit the community and prevent you from doing that bad thing more. Because if you're spending all
Yeah.
your time doing community service, you're not going to be shooting up heroin in the alley, um, and that will
Yeah.
give them a chance to reflect while they're doing that, and they can have like
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. In an ideal world, they can come out of that into a redemption. And see, because going back to, because again, I personally think that should apply to all crimes, like even super major ones. And again, I cycle back to my point of death being the great equalizer. Because for me, to give a very obvious and extreme example, like Hitler, right? I'd still say put him through intense amounts of community service because I think for me it's not a question about forgiveness or redemption at this point, right? That's up to the individual. But like I still think it's more valuable to have awful people spend the rest of their lives doing things that benefit the rest of humanity, you know? Even if they don't personally come out into redemption and don't change their ways or yeah, like I said, it's not a question of forgiveness or redemption for me. It's just about like doing what we can for each other while we're still here.
I get what you're saying, and in an ideal world, I think that would work. But there are two big factors here that I think that are at play. First, there's a conscience of the murderer themselves, or lack thereof. Either they will want to commit suicide after they do the deed, um, or they won't because they are just like a genuine psychopath. And in that case, this comes to my second point, which are the conscience. Well, not even the conscience, just like the feelings of everyone who was affected by the crime that they committed. Like you see all the time when there's like a court trial for someone who was murdered. Like you have so many family members that come and just want to see hell delivered to the murderer. And it's really heartbreaking. It's really sad. And for a lot of those people to truly start healing and moving on, they need to see that murderer killed, or at least that murderer's sentenced to life in prison. And we could also argue about like should those families just learn to get over it and move on? but asking them to do that is really hard because you can understand why they
Oh,
want to see justice done.
oh yeah, definitely. Here's the thing about it, right? Like, it's not fair to the victims to ask them to be okay with that system, but the thing with me is like everybody has different views when it comes to punishment and stuff like this. And whenever something awful happens, like the whole situation isn't fair, right? Like it's not fair somebody had to be taken away, unjustly, and it's not fair to ask families to like move on forcefully. But I think it's also not fair to perpetuate this system that just keeps creating more and more problems.
I do think we need to change things. Um, but like again, to go back to the problem of like, oh, what about rehabilitation, re-releasing them if they were in a physical prison for a while, helping them adjust and adapt after coming out. Um, we all also have to be like, is it fair to take these murderers and just kind of like keep them in prison forever? And if not, when would we release them? And when we do release them, is it fair to release them and kind of subject them to this new world where they could potentially murder more people, but that's honestly not the biggest problem in my mind. The biggest problem would be like, is it ethical to make them have to handle the world after being in prison for so long? Because if you murdered someone, I'm imagining you're like, if you're not getting sentenced to death, you're going to be spending like at least 50 years in prison or something like that
Yeah,
if it's
no,
not
like I
life.
don't have, I can't look it up right now, but it's a pretty serious sentence. And
So
it's just,
go ahead.
yeah. Well, yeah, but oh fuck, I'm sorry. I had a train of thought and then it kind of left me. Um, God damn it. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Oh, good. It's still kind of early in the morning, so
Yeah, yeah. Uh, right. I don't mean because the point I was gonna make is I don't want to make it sound like I'm sympathizing with murderers and stuff like this, but you have to realize like because I don't believe in the death penalty, so let's get that up there first of all. But I'm thinking like even if somebody does spend 50 years in prison and are subjected to a new world, those like victims who do think like the only just solution is for that person to be killed, like what then, right? Because the sad truth is even if somebody who's done something terrible may personally feel they've been redeemed, not everybody is going to accept it, right? So it's like it kind of goes back to that thing of where in this situation, I don't really think there is any fair solution. I feel like.
I would agree. There's not like a clear sense of what is most just, and that's why I keep using the word like ethical. Like, what's the most ethical thing to do? What minimizes the pain?
Yeah.
What minimizes the scale of the effects of that cause? Because that cause happened, can't be taken back. That's why people are so like emotional about this sort of thing, and so we're us trying to just tamper the effects is really what we're trying to do here.
I
And like
think
I
Yeah.
actually found the verse I was mentioning earlier. And I know like it's dangerous to like try and make policy decisions based on religion, but this is from the book of Proverbs, which is more wisdom than it is religion. And so Proverbs 28:17, a murderer's tormented conscience will drive him into the grave. Don't protect him, which makes sense because like if I murdered someone, I would never be able to live with myself after that, and so I would much rather just be killed off than spend 60, 70, 80 years in a prison or doing community service for people who I know would hate me if they knew what I did. uh, I could not live with myself. So
I
the
believe it
best I
was
would hope for
also
someone like that is like,
I, bel-
Also, hi John, welcome back.
I was believe it was also Jesus who said when asked how many times you should forgive somebody, not to forgive them once or thrice or 7 times, but 77 times. I
yes.
think that the policy you are crafting is not one of compassion. That is what you know
No, it
Jesus
is of
lived for.
compassion because forgiveness doesn't mean just ignoring everything. It
And it
means
also means acknowledging the reality of the situation of two things. First and foremost, our justice system is not perfect. The policing in America sucks ass.
Holy
And
shit, does it ever?
and more often than not, the police in America are going to get a conviction even if it's not the right person. In a reality where the death penalty exists, there is a distinct possibility that an innocent is killed for the crime of another person. And I think in that possibility, so it's like I think that the real issue with the death penalty is not necessarily that there aren't people that deserve to die for their crimes, more so that the area that like the margin of error in the punishment equal to the crime is too large. And I think
Yeah,
that an institution the size of the
especially.
American justice system can't adequately judge who should get it.
Yeah, well, especially if you consider other justice systems. Like I said, consider Japan and its 99% conviction rate. I don't know if they have a death penalty, but if they do, dear fucking God.
Well,
You
an
know?
easy solution to that would be that only people who claim guilt can get the death penalty. And then you might wonder, oh, are they just claiming guilt to get things over with, even if they're innocent? But at that point, like you said, it's just a margin of error, and it's an unfortunate imperfection of the system, but there's always going to be imperfections. On the line of forgiveness, letting someone, know, uh, live after they murdered someone uh, isn't inherently compassionate because, again, um, their conscience will be tormented. It really would be. And if it's not, that's a better reason to remove them
So
from society to
I
show
think
compassion
that
to the people they could affect. Really quick,
you
and
also
then on that same train of thought,
Well,
like
hold up a second, Justin, because I get what you're saying, but to me it also kind of sounds like you're catastrophizing here, you know, where to me at least it sounds like you're deliberately choosing to take like the worst possible outcomes for examples, which isn't really fair.
well, hold on. And then I'm just trying to make clear what forgiveness really means here. But say you have this murderer who's gone out, killed someone. You can still show them forgiveness while giving them the death penalty. Because forgiveness, unlike you, Teryn, this is where religion can come into play. Unlike you, I do not believe death is a great equalizer. I believe that role, it really is with God. God kind of is the one who sets the standards. And as a Christian, I believe that, to show forgiveness to a murderer is not completely distinct from giving them the death penalty. Because, like, say someone murdered my mother, I could forgive them, and I could be like, you know what, it happened. I really don't like that it happened, but I still wish the best for you in God's kingdom, and I wish that you can find Him before your time comes. But oh boy, I want your time to come. Like I want
I
you out
think
of here.
I want to make 2 points real quick. First and foremost, murder being a human crime is affected by human nature, and it is never going to be homogenized into one single instance of the murderer feeling guilt. Because as with every crime, there are situations where the crime may or may be illegal, but may or may not be considered ethical by the people outside who are judging it. For example, say you discover your child got molested, right? There are examples even today of fathers and mothers going out there and killing the person who abused their child, or any number of situations, revenge killings or
With
protection
passion,
killings or
yeah.
self-defense. And like I know, we're in talking about murder, like there is other things that cause a death penalty, but like we're talking about that murder. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we make it clear that not every person who commits a murder is going to be guilty and repentant, and they're not going to feel that way because they're going to feel justified in the act they performed. And I think that if your sole reason for the death penalty is to give them ease and to ease their conscience by expediting their path to the kingdom of God, then I don't really think that's just because not all of them are going to feel that way.
And
I actually do have 3 points, but go ahead, Teryn, because they're kind of
well,
lengthy.
I have also a couple of points that aren't entirely related to this, but anyways. One, first of all, you have to deal with people who either aren't religious or don't follow Christianity as well in there. But also, two, one, like, I've talked about this with you before, John. Justice and arrogance are, like, inherently intertwined, Because, like, what is arrogance if not deciding what is right and wrong, you know? And three, this is mostly unrelated, but because you, John, were talking about like people who would commit a murder out of a crime with passion, and for me, I think like in regards to people who are genuinely like medically diagnosed psychopaths or sociopaths, then who have like committed a murder, obviously that's bad, but part of the system is also like how poor America's healthcare, mental health is, in regards to like helping people who do actually just like have these medical afflictions of sociopathy or psychopathy cope and manage, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that because I do want to establish the other 2 points, and it's like, but to respond to yours, there are psychopaths who are functioning members of society, or people who have psychopath brains. It's merely how like their nature interacts with the nurture that surrounds them. So I think if America got better at that, we'd fix the problem before it started. But on your point, and on my second point of, it's like you may claim that you're not crafting a policy or believing in this out of a religious conviction, Justin. But if that is true, then you need to make your reasoning purely logical, maybe supported by your religious text, but not purely supported by your religious text. Because if as soon as it is purely supported by your religious text, in my mind, it becomes a religious policy. And other religions are going to, and other non religious people are going to disagree with your policy on the basis of that religious text. And if you craft a policy based purely on that, then it's not a secular policy. It's not separate from church and state, right?
Well, I
It's
mean, I
like
don't think I was making my previous claim based solely on the text, because again,
I
logically
mean,
speaking, keeping a murderer alive would be unethical for them and unethical for a lot of people who were affected by the
you're
murder.
you're
Well, that's
the
what
the
Jesus
only
decided to do.
information that's only your only ethical basis has been the logic derived from the Bible so far. Like ethics are, you can't just say the only ethical conclusion and say that's like the only logical ethical conclusion, because ethics are irrecoverably tied to our lifestyles, to what built us and informed us, right?
I
I
did
think
not say
that
the only ethical conclusion, though.
I know you
Man,
didn't, but like you
I
only
know
brought
that.
up Bible verses in support of your conclusion, and only have been talking about how in the Bible it says it's unethical, and I believe it is unethical to keep a murderer alive, right?
So this has been a really good conversation, but boy howdy, did we pick a fucking topic for 9:30 in the morning.
Well, I don't think I will say this, John. I don't think it's fair to say, "Oh, you're only bringing up this stuff in the Bible," because I think that piece of wisdom can appear in many other texts, and just in normal conversation as a logical point. Because you do have to consider, it's like, if you're sentencing a murderer to death, like what are the ethical considerations of that? And I think a big consideration should be, it's like the conscience of the murderer. Um, would they want to die after killing someone else? Eventually, would the guilt get to them? We talked about this in my philosophy class, and that's really the main reason I brought it up. I just happen to have a Bible verse that went along with it. But we can just remove the religion from this entirely and look at this more logically, and that's where my definition of forgiveness would have to be modified. Um,
Justin, your webcam turned off there. Okay, you're
No,
back now.
it's still on for me.
Oh, okay. I guess it was just me then. Sorry. Don't mind me.
but but I do think it is very interesting. Like you said, like we can even look at more minor, not minor cases, but like crimes of passion, cases where there seem to be more uh, more ethical considerations, a more complex kind of interweaved network of reasoning and judgment and moral decisions and stuff like that. But I will admit, John, I don't think it's very fair for you to be saying that I'm making these decisions purely based off my religious text, because some of what I'm saying seems very vague and broad, as more of a logical thought process of the ethical considerations, as opposed to something directly related to my religious text. Um,
Okay, but Justin, I have a point I'd like to try and make here,
Go ahead.
and that's because when I hear you talking about this stuff, talking about like the guilt and the conscience of the murderer, where I kind of take umbrage is that to me it feels like you are working under the assumption that like guilt will indominate. Sorry, let me try and words. Will like indefinitely consume them, like it's an inevitability. And I don't think that's really fair because like we take crimes of passion, right? Where people may never feel guilt for the situation throughout their entire lives. Or there may be people who do like feel the guilt of that murder, feel it on their conscience, but if they're allowed to keep their lives, there's the possibility for redemption, at least for them, Because like I said before, for every like individual, whether or not a person is redeemed is subjective, but you can still achieve a personal redemption, right?
Well, and I would agree that like guilt, that's not guaranteed, and even if it were, like you said, there's a potential for redemption here, and that's where you have to start like asking other follow up questions about like ethically, what's the best thing to do considering the feelings of the people affected by the murder. What about the prison system? Like, would it be ethical to keep someone in the prison system if it's so bad? And then like if we were to give, say, a murder community service for the rest of their lives instead of a prison sentence or instead of a death sentence, what could spring from that? And then you also have to, like, on the crimes of passion, uh, train of
Angle.
thought, you have to ask, would people try to, seek vengeance and then go out and kill, say, a murderer doing community service? And then you'd have just this whole new branch to consider ethically, because there's a new murder that's happened. Um,
Well, that's just well, hold up. That's just kind of the thing about, creating any sort of system, isn't it? Like it changes and develops as like people kind of experiment with it through the process of living, right? I mean, that's why every nation has like changed over time because the world changes. So I don't think it's like, oh, well, what if this happened and then the system would have to change? It's like, yeah, that's just kind of how that works, right?
but let's see. Right now, I'm not even trying to support my stance that, oh, the death penalty is ethical. Right now, I'm just trying to build like a map of ethical considerations to try and kind of reflect back to our current system and see what we can do to change that and make it more ethical,
Well, I
whether or
mean,
not we have a death penalty.
I've kind of given my elevator pitch, and obviously, speaking words is a lot different than writing policies, but that's just how I feel, and I think I'll likely always feel personally. So I don't have a whole lot more to add outside of repeating myself.
I think that the issue I have, and I think where we fundamentally differ, is based in our upbringing and our current worldviews. And I know Teryn feels the same way, but I believe fundamentally that the death penalty is unethical by nature. And I think that that is the crux of the issue. It is not all the ethical considerations that go into whether or not we should apply the death penalty. In my mind, the death penalty is unethical, full stop.
Yeah, same
Like,
here.
and whenever the death penalty is unethical, full stop, it is unethical because of the, like I've said before, the uncertain nature of convictions is unethical because it, based on your worldview, can have different levels of consequence for different people, which is inherently unfair. Uh, and in a major way, I don't believe the state should necessarily have that power. And I think that the ethical considerations that go into whether or not we should do it, it's like whether or not, if you're looking at it as a utilitarian would, whether or not we balance the maximum amount of pleasure over pain for everyone involved in the situation, it doesn't necessarily matter. And I think that's for a few reasons. I think that first, the people who might want to see somebody dead obviously are not thinking straight because they might be afflicted. The person themselves might be innocent and a whole myriad of other circumstances. And whenever I was talking about your basis in religion, I'm not saying every point you're making is purely based on that religion. I'm saying it feels to me that your point of view of the death penalty has been informed by your religion.
It
And
has.
rather than, and then, which is fair, obviously, because that's how you grew up. That's like what you were socialized by with your family and your church and all that sort of stuff. Like it's not to be unexpected. But I feel like the points you're making are not in escape or in defiance of that religion, more in justification of the policy as you listed it in the Bible. I think if you were truly, and because I have to do this for myself too, I think if you were truly trying to analyze a policy on its own merits, you would analyze it entirely outside of what you were socialized in. But you quoted the Bible, right?
I did.
So it's like, and
Yeah.
that's fair. Once again, like whenever you're crafting
Yeah,
policy,
sorry, can I cut in 1 second here? Just because
yes,
what you're talking about is very interesting, but I just would like to kind of bring in a separate idea of discussion because, we both disagree with the death penalty, but while I don't disagree with your reasons, I just would like to make it known that me personally, my thing with the death penalty is I just don't think killing somebody is ever justified. Like, it's a purely pacifistic philosophy for me, you know? So how I guess I'm kind of thinking like, how does you feel in regards to that?
I think that the existence of, it's like it's not that your philosophy is superior to, say, a Muslim or a Christian who believes in the death penalty. But the existence of your philosophy standing in contrast means we can't craft policies in either, which does just so happen to favor a pacifistic policy, because unfortunately we can't bring people back from the dead and say sorry, saws dude.
I did a
Uh,
whoopsie.
whoopsies guys, sorry. It's just like the unfortunate nature of death that it is, you know, irreversible. Well,
Well,
for
unless
now.
you believe in reincarnation.
For
For
now.
now. That's also true. It could be like maybe there's some Hindus out there who are like, yeah, kill him, he'll just come back, man.
Maybe
I
after Hitler died, he came back and he's like, I don't even know,
Dude, Hitler didn't die. What
Mr.
are you
Beast.
maybe
talking
he's
about?
Jeff Bezos now.
Dude,
I can
Hitler got in a
believe it.
submarine beneath his mansion, and it lived in Argentina. I love that John Mulaney bit. I know we're changing the subject, but it's probably good because we've been talking about this for a while. But I love that John Mulaney bit.
Oh,
Would you kill Hitler?
if
I
you
don't
saw
know.
him walking down the street, yeah.
Did I see a man who looked like Hitler, or did I see a very, very old man hobbling down the road?
Because I'm gonna assume that's probably not Hitler. Okay. Also, kind of unrelated, but is that show still going on, Hunting Hitler?
Probably. Is it a History Channel show?
Yeah,
Oh, of course it is.
I know.
Probably.
Like, oh my
History
god.
Man.
I
That
used to have,
actually kind of has me wondering, like, we oftentimes, like, nowadays, like, Hitler has so just affected the way we, like, talk about a lot of different things, like, especially, like, ethical debates we bring up, like, for a worst case, like, oh, Hitler, or something like that.
Yeah, it always happens. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder who could replace Hitler as that, like, go-to, and if it is, when will they appear? And, like, I don't know. I'm just curious to see, like, who's going to be, like, the next world's worst person.
Maybe it'll be the other Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, there's
Adolf
another
Hitler
one.
2, Electric Boogaloo.
It's
No,
funny because
do you guys not know about that?
yeah, I've heard about Adolf Hitler.
Oh
The
yeah,
second. I've heard about him. It's been a while though.
yeah.
Have you
There's
guys heard that Mussolini's son, like or grandson, also like got elected to office in
yeah.
Italy? Yeah, that's fun.
Hey, let's not sins of the father this shit, man. Come on.
Well, and Japan's also rearming. I
Oh,
think we're just
fuck.
and Germany's also rearming, dude. We're going for round 2, man. These motherfuckers, they're like, I could do this all day.
What's that one Einstein quote where he's like, I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, baby. Oh, but listen, just so you're in the loop, there's I think it's like a Nigerian politician or something whose name is literally Adolf Hitler.
He's
Like,
the guy
he's
who
alive
keeps sending
today.
everyone those emails like, I'm Nigerian
Didn't
prince,
he like?
let me give you $1
Doesn't he like
million.
not know like what Adolf Hitler did or some shit like that?
Yeah.
He
And
genuinely
from
didn't
what
know.
I've read, he's actually done quite a bit of good for like his place. I don't want to name specifics. I don't remember exactly like where he is a politician, and I'm an ignorant Americano like that.
I do think it's
You're
really
a
interesting
cup of coffee.
Hi, Kitty.
how coming out of World War II, like, in a short time, the U.S. loves Japanese culture, like, which is very interesting to see historically, because 70 short years ago, we hated them.
I only learned this recently, but I think it was the 80s or like the late 70s. So you guys have all watched the Bill Wirtz video, History of Japan, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I've not. I've watched
You
History of
should.
the Entire World, I guess, or something.
Bill-
But
Yeah, but he did a History of Japan. I think he did for History of the Entire World.
Yeah,
And so-
I think I remember hearing he did the history of Japan as like a practice to see if he could do history of the world.
So it's like he went Japanese economic miracle. So in the 70s and 80s, Japan was just fucking bopping for like no reason.
Oh yeah,
Like we were
just
exploding.
economic miracle, baby.
So much so that basically everyone in America was like, the Japanese are one day gonna, like, if not be our equal, then overtake us economically. And like,
then the lost decade happened.
exactly. But there was this whole mentality that, oh, we're gonna have to start putting Japanese on road signs. The Japanese, like, it's just like Japanese culture became super fascinating because of economics. And then obviously the crash happened. And fun fact, that's the whole reason the cyberpunk aesthetic exists. It's because of that. This idea that Japan would one day like economically be a hegemon over here in the U.S. Like Street Samurai, shit like that.
What affected like Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It very much impacted Blade Runner. It's like that whole like genre, the whole aesthetic. But that's why America is so fascinated with Japanese culture, because businessmen would go over there, be like, "Oh, I like money. I like sushi too, and they'd come home and they'd want that shit. And then
Yeah,
also Nintendo. Like I mean that honestly. Like Nintendo
yeah.
fucking slaps.
Nintendo, and then of course anime.
Casted Chris Pratt as Mario.
Nintendo's an opening drug. It's a gateway drug to anime.
I'm so hyped for that Mario movie, dude. 2.5 weeks. Already got my tickets. Go see it in IMAX.
Oh
Right in the
right,
middle.
that is 2.5 weeks away. Oh shit. I don't know if I'm gonna see it, man.
Okay,
I honestly don't.
after this, I want to send it in the group chat. I already got like 4 or 5 people coming with me. Um,
God dang,
trying
regular
to bring an
party.
army, right? So
Just like have half the theater be your friends.
that's what I'm going for.
We're all gonna wear suits to watch the Mario movie, kind of like what they did with the Minions movie.
Oh my
I
fucking
think I
god.
will. Yeah.
Uh,
At least I'll wear something nice.
I loved that meme, by the way. That was that was a super funny meme.
yeah.
The fucking Minions, like, have watch people go up the escalators at the mall, like all these guys, like all these middle school guys in suits and stuff.
Did I show
And
you
he's
the
the
little
guy, and
video
they
clip
all
on my
fit
phone?
terribly.
Oh fuck. Okay.
Did I show you the
Go
video
ahead.
clip on my phone of me wearing a suit to the Minions movie?
Did you actually?
I did. I did. I can show it to
I,
you
I, I
all
Let's
after,
respect.
but
go.
I have
This is how
tremendous
meme
respect.
man got his start. You go, meme man. You go.
oh,
Alright,
I
but
feel like
speaking
that's
of
like
fun things, I can't. Sorry, I can't believe I mentioned this yet. Did y'all know I did axe throwing while I was in Hot Springs?
neat.
oh,
Yeah. I I meant because I had a couple of videos taken of me, and I meant to upload them to our server, but the files were too big. They said, no, 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 get Discord Nitro, you poor bitch. And
Discord.
I'm like, no
Yes.
thanks.
Man, actually, speaking of Blade Runner from earlier, something that's always fascinated me is like our view of the future and how that's evolved over time. Like I love looking at like old like 1900s cartoons of like the year 2000 and stuff like that and seeing how wildly off they were. And it's kind of always reminds me
Yeah.
that you can't really expect the world or even your individual life to go a specific direction for really
I
any
know,
period
dude.
of
Wreck-It
time over like a
was
year.
pretty close.
Oh, what
I just
was
think it's
like
like
Reki
it's
Karaha
crazy.
was SAO, right?
Yeah.
Was it VR that he was close with? Like, what was his accurate prediction?
Well, the thing is, like, the world of SAO is like pretty much the same as this one. The main, like, and part of it's because, this is the narrative he's wanting to tell. But, like, the main technological thing is full dive VR. And, like, while we're definitely not there yet, we got VR. Not full dive VR, but we're getting there.
I mean, yeah,
But
we have like
everything else
haptic
is
suits
pretty
and
much
stuff.
the same.
I think full dive, like the concept is like your brain gets sent to VR,
Yeah.
right? The instant that happens, like we're gonna see some real shit. Like
It's gonna be crazy.
society is going to have another big. It's gonna be another internet boom, and
Yeah.
like in terms of impact it's gonna have
I
on
can't
society.
believe I can't believe, but I also love that one VR company made like the fucking VR headset that kills you as a homage to SAO.
What I
That
was
is
about to say
very
is
funny.
like brain VR sounds terrifying because like you could get a virus that literally just tells your brain to make your heart stop. Like that's
Oh, 100%.
creepy.
It is genuinely
See,
terrifying. It's
that's the
creepy
thing
as
where I
fuck.
just disagree with you guys. It's funny because I thought about this recently because I was reminded about Ghosts in the Shell, when we watched that together. And the thing that I realized when I watched Ghost in the Shell is that that movie is like, as far as I'm concerned, is only super like interesting and impactful if the idea of transhumanism is something that like is gives you some anxiety. But it doesn't for me. So while I'm like, yeah, it's a very good movie and it's like very well written and all that, like hearing all these people making these arguments, I'm just like, yeah, okay, you know, because that idea
Transhumanism
doesn't.
doesn't scare me. It's like transhumanism doesn't scare me necessarily. It's like the stage in the middle. Because, like, okay, listen, I don't think playing video games is bad. I don't think being a neat, living on your own, if as long as you're not like mooching off of others, is bad. But I could totally see if full dive VR was a thing, or you could send your brain to a virtual realm. Like, people would just check out, and like not unjustifiably. Life could suck, but like it's still gonna be like, if it became affordable, like I could imagine entire segments of the population. You know what I mean? Just like literally checking out of reality.
But the experiences we have both in the real and
No,
virtual world
they
are
are just as
incredibly
valid. They're just as valid, but it's like you still need people to like flip burgers and sweep floors and like drive buses and shit. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but the thing is, whenever I hear that thing, I'm just like, John, I appreciate what you're saying, but also I don't think humans are that stupid or desperate to escape
No,
reality, personally.
We could
I
be.
think there's a
We have the
section of the
potential.
population that is. I think that like, and I think the section I'm talking about, like the lower income, like wage worker jobs, like labor jobs, they're pretty fucking desperate to escape reality, dude. Like your middle class folk, yeah, they're fine, you know. But and listen, I'm all about like I'm fairly left. I'm pretty socialist. I think that people should be getting money for sweeping floors and shit. Like I don't think they should be living the way they are. But like I also think that like if you were to like give them an opportunity to like just go be a freaking like
Anime
cat
girls.
lady in like a realistic VR chat, like I think they'd take it. Like I think they'd get out of this world, man.
I get that, but the thing is, America is definitely not going to become socialist anytime soon. So, like, if they wanted to keep doing that, they'd still have to flip burgers and sweep floors and shit. Hence my people aren't that stupid thing.
You know how there's just like people who live off RuneScape?
There are. But
Well,
if everyone lived off RuneScape, no one could.
I mean, right now, but like, I think you guys are underestimating the impact that like full dive VR would have on society. Like,
I think
life,
you're overestimating
no,
it.
life fundamentally changed whenever the internet became a thing. Like, it fundamentally just modified. It's not the same as it was beforehand.
No, like
And I
I
think
And I'm
full
agree.
not
dive
denying
technology
that,
is a
but
similar
because
level of societal impact. I think it would be like very similar.
I think
I
full dive
agree,
VR
but
will
again,
become.
I just have faith in humanity.
I think full dive VR would be much more feasible when we get to like the next agricultural revolution, where our food is being grown and produced autonomously. But until that happens,
Like,
we are going to need some
really?
like ground workers, laborers doing these things, getting us our food.
It's
Because
like
you can't be. You can do mind VR all you want, but you can't eat mind burgers. You gotta have
allow
some
me to
real food.
allow me to reiterate and I'll drop it after this because I understand like I'm in the minority here. But two things, right? Complexity in society means people can perform tasks that were once deemed as useless but have use to the society. Like stock traders, day traders, what the fuck are they really doing? They're looking at a screen of the stock
Yeah.
market, clicking red buttons and selling them when they're green. Like there's no inherent value to what they're doing, right? But they're still living rich, like fucking opulent lives. Now, can take that kind of concept of like the abstractification of society of being able to do things that have no inherent value but inherent value to others. If people could live in full VR, grind mobs, and then sell it to the highest bidder for real money, they're not gonna want to fucking flip burgers, right?
But
Like
they are
that's
going
kind
to
of what
want
I'm
to
talking
eat.
about.
And so
Yes, but if you
someone's
can
going to
make
have to
money,
flip the
what I'm saying
burgers.
is
And
it's
so
gonna be. I believe it's gonna be possible to make money off of VR. If you can make money off of VR, and it's like because it's like making money off video games is not ergonomically like viable for a lot of people because it's just like you're at a chair at a desk get to have all this shit.
Yeah,
Real-time VR would be fundamentally different for a lot
yeah,
of people.
definitely. But you
Like
know
you
what?
don't.
Actually, if we're talking about full scale, maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic here, but potentially full dive VR might kind of solve fucking the obesity problem in America just a little bit, because I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking wrong here, but I think like those really dedicated gamers that will play for like days on end. Like imagine they do that in VR. It's like they won't be exercising, but like eating less, as fucked up as it sounds, is a pretty decent way to diet. So like I said, potentially help out the obesity problem in America.
well, again, with full dive VR, my concern is just like the because like internet comes around, hackers suddenly become a huge threat to a lot of people's ways of life. When before, like thieves or like murderers were like the biggest threats to people's ways of life. But like now, or not now, but like in the future, if we have this full dive VR stuff, I'd be so scared of hackers, dude. Because again, like someone like steals all their stuff in RuneScape. Ah, your heart's going to stop. Like that's terrifying. And you could always say like, oh, the manufacturers of the full dive VR system won't let that happen. I don't know, man. I feel like hackers could find a way. They could do something.
Do you guys think that
Yeah.
SAO will ever really happen? Like, do you think it's gonna like be a thing?
I think like full dive VR will happen, but I don't think it'll be possible for like a bunch of people to get trapped inside the game. I don't think that's gonna happen.
I think it could. I mean, technically, when you think about it, like we don't know if we're trapped in a game right now. This goes into
Standard.
idealism,
Stop it.
which is this.
Where it's
Like,
okay. It's 9:53 a.m. Fucker. I don't wanna
philosophy
do
of
that.
mind, okay?
Yeah.
Idealism
But I
says
was gonna
that there
say-
is no outside world. Everything is just conscious experience. It's just that we are kind of locked into that. And for whatever reason, we can't break out of it, except for
That's fine, because the thing
apparently,
is,
except for that. But for all we know,
well,
that
then
wouldn't
you
even end
up
it.
your ass about like, yeah, if realities can be simulated, then the chances of one reality being the true reality are pretty fucking
Okay.
low.
Well,
I
I'm
don't
saying
actually
is
mean this. But
technically,
I have
perceptually,
ahead.
really quick, perceptually, our reality right now is being simulated. We have all these inputs, and some magic system that we don't understand, and may never understand fully, is producing this conscious output, and whatever's making that happen is not stopping. And that kind of goes into will full dive VR ever exist. First, we have to figure out how things affect our consciousness. Actually, no, we wouldn't.
It's
No, we
too
wouldn't. No, we
early
wouldn't.
for this.
But let me have this. Let me have this. But I just think idealism is
You
so
get 30
cool
more
as a philosophy of
seconds
mind camp,
counting in my head.
because it's just like everything technically that we know of is based on sensory and perception. And so, things that can modify that sensory and perception just get us thinking, what if our sensory and perception is being modified right now? And when you think about it, it is. Even if it's being modified by a material world, it is. But the prospect of us making things in that material world that give us our own desired sensory perceptual experiences, that's really fascinating. But for all we know, that's what's happening right
Alright,
now.
your 30 seconds are up, Justin. I counted in my head. I
So I
gave
just thought of like
you.
I thought I don't really mean this, but I thought of a funny retort I want to say for the sake of the humor that it invokes. It's like, you want to have a conscious experience, son? I'm gonna put my boot in your ass.
Yeah.
I'll
Wait,
get
I was
conscious
gonna say
experience,
something.
sensory input.
One thing. But it slips my mind now. Justin distracted me with his nerd talk. Shit.
I have a habit of doing that. It's the effect I have
Yeah.
on people.
Oh shit, man.
I love how we went from the death penalty to this. My favorite part of these
Hey
podcasts.
man. That's how any conversation really flows,
If you
right?
grief my Minecraft full dive VR base, then you get killed. That's
You die in the game, you die for
Can you
real.
imagine the last thing you see is the fucking troll face? Could you imagine? You just like you sit there and play whatever game you're playing, and you see the troll face, and then you're just
It's
just
like a heart
conked.
attack.
You're out.
Yeah. Oh right, now I remember what I was gonna say, because you were talking about like would SAO actually happen, and I said no, I don't think it could happen. And the reason why is just because like there would be way too many eyes on any sort of full dive game for somebody to sneak in a you can't log out function, right?
that's what yeah, it's like it's not developed by one person. You know, it's like there's gonna be like 50 like 1,000 people working on this project, and then one person just
Yeah.
like, hey boss, is this what's this line of code here? It says kill them with microwave radiation. Don't worry about that, John. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. King, say
Hey,
hi.
boss.
People listening to the podcast. King, say hi.
Man,
I
you
need
need a
breakfast.
webcam, Teryn. You need it so bad. We can't get that key
Uh,
function.
True, I can't have my cat on the web on this series.
Seems
Well,
bad.
that's implying I'd ever appear again as a guest speaker
We
or
all just need to
whatever it is.
collectively modify our sensory perception experience to see King right now. We just gotta get
You know,
over
that's
it and do
a
it.
that's a mind fuck because what you're talking about, like the philosophy of the mind stuff. It's like the only thing if like one of my favorite questions to ask people is like if we were in an empty, doorless, windowless, plain room, and there was a chair in the center of the room that didn't exist but we all saw, then fundamentally that chair is real, right? Like that chair exists to us.
Yeah,
It's real. Uh,
Israel.
it's not Palestine. It's real.
Well,
Yeah.
And that's something that Descartes talked a lot about. It's like,
Oh, I'm shit,
the
cat. Don't fight me.
the ideas of things exist independent of some kind of material existence, which is why he likes dividing things like material substance and mental substance. And there are problems that arise from that the more you think about it. But still, it still it still holds true that the idea of something is very different from the thing itself. That's where idealism comes from.
Yeah.
So, man, dude,
Well, that
as a game
also goes
developer,
into language as well. Like, if somebody was raised thinking the color blue is the color red, then that's the color red to them, right?
yeah, and that actually is very interesting that you bring that up, because like that's like directly where philosophy of mind starts heading. It's like, well, let's deconstruct the kind of framework that language has built for us, and try and break away from that, because that does kind of hold you back in your thought process. Because language,
It's like
just being language, does
alchemy.
kind of affect your intuitions.
Well, it's like something I've commonly thought about is many languages have multiple words for love of varying types, and I think that lends itself to a deeper understanding of love fundamentally. Whereas in America, it's like, or just in English in general, you say you love somebody, but what does that mean? You usually have to add some sort of qualifying word on top of that word, right? Oh, I romantically love you. I
Platonic
platonically
love.
love you. Yes, which usually performs the same task, but you can
Yeah.
argue that the lack of word does restrict your understanding for certain things.
I
Uh,
kind of disagree because I feel like the solution kind of solves itself with like the additive of like platonic or whatever. Because the thing
well,
is, you talk about how like, hold up a sec, John. You talk about how like other word languages have different words for love, but like if you're an like a romantic person but not like asexual, then how do you like say in another language that you like I guess are friends with benefits for with somebody in that example or
well,
like love them platonically?
new words can be invented for new concepts, but it is true that so it's like I'm not like I use love as an example because it's something we can grasp. But there are words in other languages for concepts that we literally don't have words for in English,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
like KY.
yeah, it's like I have this dictionary of words like that.
Is
Uh,
it the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, or is it something else?
yeah, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. Uh,
Well, and I think the beautiful thing about that is, though, is because language is so generative by nature, you can eventually express the idea that a single word might in another language, but having that single word and using it definitely does kind of shape your way of thinking, because there's language, but there's also just your thought process, and like when you think to yourself, you usually think in a language. Uh, so,
Je suis
uh,
désolé, je ne parle pas français très bien.
thank you.
it's like I like this one a lot. It's German. It's Mauterbauratrigate. That's probably incorrect. It is the inexplicable urge to push people away, even close friends whose company you generally enjoy, like a poker player who keeps holding a promising hand in order to avoid the pain of losing, or tamp down the urge to go all in. It's like we have those concepts, but like having a single word to attribute to that emotion kind of lends itself to like just an inherent understanding. It's like that person had to write a paragraph to make me understand that, whereas a German
Yeah,
person would hear that word and be like, okay, you know what I mean?
yeah.
That
Okay,
actually ties directly
just
into something my pastor
hold up
talked
one
about
sec,
last week.
guys. I
Wait,
just
oh,
need
go ahead.
to point this out. It is 10 now, and obviously, if you guys still want to talk, so want to continue the podcast, that's fine. But I gotta leave here so I can prepare for work and shit. So
Well,
I
yeah.
I was
thank you
actually getting
for
ready to wrap it up, but I'm glad you said that, John, because it does tie directly into what my pastor was talking about last week with fear of rejection. And one of the telltale signs that you have an intense fear of rejection is that you preemptively reject others to avoid having them reject you. And I think that's exactly what that German word there is kind of describing.
very
Where it's
much
like
so.
to avoid rejection, you reject others, which is so counterintuitive and also hypocritical. But we also do that as like a weird self defense mechanism. And so it's very good to have words like that describe those feelings that can be described in English, but it's a bit wordy and it's something that's harder to internalize. But it's like
All
it's still
right,
a very
let's
universal feeling.
do
All
the
right,
app.
so what's the silly thing we're gonna do to end this? Do you think full dive VR is gonna make it to where I can see my Minecraft GF?
Hell
like
yes.
like in person.
Yeah, get a look at that Alex. Is that the name? I don't know
Well,
Minecraft.
Alex is not my Minecraft GF. Like my Minecraft GF is like a combination of Herobrine and like a squid.
So,
Oh, it's
how would
tossing
Randy
up
feel
the
about this?
most tentacles.
How does Randy feel about this?
Yes, does she know?
You're
I used to
assuming
call
Randy's
that
not
Atlas
involved?
Asking.
So,
Okay.
you do you, John. You go. You get him. Yeah.
Bye.
Um, yeah.